All right, good afternoon, everyone. Now, as is our tradition for a little while, I have a song, you pick a song. So the song I have picked is number 367, Wherever He Leads, I'll Go. Number 367. And while we're singing, y'all find one to pick. $367. Take up thy cross and follow me. I heard my master say, I gave my life to ransom thee. Surrender your all today. Wherever he leads, I'll go. Wherever he leads, I'll go. I'll follow my Christ who loves me so. Wherever he leads, I'll go. He drew me closer to his side. I sought his will to know. And in that will I now abide. Wherever he leads, I'll go. Wherever he leads, I'll go. Wherever he leads, I'll go. I'll follow my Christ who loves me so. Wherever he leads, I'll go. It may be through the shadows dim, or o'er the stormy sea. I'll take the cross and follow him wherever he leadeth me. Wherever he leads, I'll go. Wherever he leads, I'll go. I'll follow my Christ who loves me so. Wherever he leads, I'll go. My heart, my life, my all I bring to Christ who loves me so. He is my Master, Lord, and King. Wherever he leads, I'll go. Wherever he leads, I'll go. Wherever he leads, I'll go. I'll follow my Christ who loves me so. Wherever he leads, I'll go. All right. Who's got one? 505. Love lifted me. 505. I was sinking deep in sin, far from the peaceful shore, very deeply stained within, sinking to rise no more. But the master of the sea heard my despairing cry. From the waters lifted me, now safe am I. Love lifted me, when nothing else could help. Love lifted me, love lifted me, love lifted me, when nothing else could help. Love lifted me. All my heart to him I give, ever to him I'll cling. In his blessed presence live, ever his praises sing. Love so mighty and so true merits my soul's best songs. Faithful, loving service to him belongs. Love lifted me, when nothing else could help. Love lifted me, love lifted me, love lifted me, when nothing else could help. Love lifted me. Souls in danger, look above. Jesus completely saves. He will lift you by his love out of the angry waves. He's the master of the sea, billows his will obey. He, your Savior, wants to be saved today. Love lifted me, when nothing else could help. Love lifted me, love lifted me, love lifted me, when nothing else could help. Love lifted me. All right.
I hope everybody is doing okay this evening. It is refreshing to see churches that still kind of do a Sunday night evening service. You know, you get to go home. Hopefully, some of y'all took a nap. You know, you're able to kind of get refreshed, and it's exciting to be back together again this evening. I was telling Calvin that it, to me, and I may have cheated a little bit, but I watched several of the services on Facebook just to kind of get a feel for things. And I find it very impressive that Calvin, A, comes up here, not only sings, but B, that he takes requests from the audience. You know, that's not something that I think that you would find in most churches. So I just have to say that kind of out loud to everybody, is, you know, that is very impressive, Calvin. And so it is something that, you know, you kind of feel like you're at maybe karaoke a little bit, like you're taking requests, but really, Calvin, it truly is impressive that you're able to take something, you know, I mean, from anybody in the audience and just kind of go with it. So very impressive. So we're going to be in Luke, and specifically Luke chapter 15. And so there is a lot going on here in Luke chapter 15. And just to kind of establish a little bit of background here in Luke chapter 15, in the first two verses here in Luke chapter 15, it says, "Now the tax collectors and sinners were all drawing near to him, and the Pharisees and the scribes grumbled, saying, 'This man receives sinners and eats with them.'" So, if you don't know, like tax collectors at this time and sinners were often lumped together. It may not have been the best look for Jesus to be keeping the company of these individuals, because they were viewed upon in society at that time as less than, and those of proper respect would stay away from them. They had a certain reputation to uphold, and so if you had a distinguished reputation, you would not associate with these tax collectors or these sinners, because it would tarnish your reputation. Now, there are several instances in the Bible where Christ kind of lays out that, hey, anybody who is willing is open and welcome to me. You think about, one of my favorite stories from the Bible is Jesus and the woman at the well, and that story, it was somebody whose own people had given up on her, and it took the power of Christ stepping in for her to receive the good news that he was, spreading. And so you think that, in many examples you see where Christ is surrounding himself with people who are viewed as less than, people who may not be, we would refer to them as popular. I don't know very many of us who get real excited when our tax bill comes, even today. You're like, wow, I thought I gave you enough already. I feel like you got enough of what I'm bringing home, and so it's kind of funny to look at maybe even 2,000 years ago that tax collectors still weren't the most exciting people to be around, but nonetheless, that Jesus is talking to these people, and he goes through three parables and three very important parables that relate to our life, and kind of revolve around Christ's pursuit of us, but not only Christ's pursuit of us, but Christ's pursuit of the lost. And so the three parables, you have the parable of the lost sheep, which is where you would have 100 sheep, you have 99, but the one lost one is the one that we're looking for. Now, most people would say, hey, you've got 99, you're doing pretty good. And it's like, no, I need to find the one. We're not complete, we're not whole. The entire flock is not here, so I will leave the 99 to search out and find the one. And then you have the parable of the lost coin, which it talks about the steadfast looking and using the lamp to hide, to search the house and find everything. But where I really want to kind of camp out here a little bit is the parable of the lost son. So we'll be in Luke 15, and we'll start in verse 11. And so the parable of the lost son. So verse 11, Jesus continues. He's told the parable of the lost sheep and the parable of the lost coin, but here he goes into the parable of the lost son. And we talked a little bit this morning about how sometimes our stubbornness, maybe Jonah's stubbornness, can get in the way. But in the parable of the lost son, we're going to see that sometimes jealousy can be a huge detriment to us in our walk. And so, parable of the lost son, so we'll start at verse 11. So it says, Jesus continued, "There was a man who had 2 sons. The younger one said to his father, 'Father, give me my share of the estate.' So he divided his estate between them." In verse 13, not long after that, the younger son got together all he had and set off for a distant country, where he squandered his wealth in wild living. Verse 14, after he had spent everything there was a severe famine, and the whole country, spread through the entire country, and he began to be in need. So he went out and hired himself out to a citizen of that country who sent him to the fields to feed pigs. In verse 16, he longed to fill his stomach with the pods that the pigs were eating, but no one gave him anything. Now in verse 17, he kind of comes to a realization or to his senses, and he said, how many of my father's hired servants have food to spare, and I am starving to death here? And so in verse 18, you can kind of see he is starting to kind of map out, okay, what is my approach going to be? Clearly staying here is not working, and he is trying to come up with, what is my game plan going to be? I have taken this wealth and I have squandered it. What am I now going to say to my father to somehow justify what I have done? Because realistically, it was kind of backhanded to go to your father and say, hey, that inheritance that I'm supposed to get after you die, you're not dying fast enough for me. I need that now. Like that'd be pretty reprehensible to say to somebody now, to go, hey, you're not, me and you have two different timelines on how long you're supposed to live, and mine's up now, and I need that inheritance. That's kind of like those. The J.G. Wentworth commercials, it's my money and I need it now kind of deal. It kind of speaks a little bit to how even something that we struggle with today is delayed gratification. We've got to have everything instantly. It's got to be here now. I've got to have it now. If I can't afford it, I'll just put it on the credit card and I'll deal with the repercussions later. And that's essentially what has happened. And so in verse 18, he says, I will set out and go back to my father and say to him, Father, I have sinned against you and heaven, and I am no longer worthy of being called your son. Make me like one of your hired servants. So he got up and went to his father. Now, my Monday through Friday occupation, I work with students at UAB. I help oversee some of the operations of we have 6 residence halls on campus, and I kind of help oversee some of the operations. I ensure that we've got plans for tornadoes and fire drills and all that. And I have seen versions of the parable of the lost son in real life with college students. I've seen it at Jacksonville State. I've seen it at UAB. But there are several freshmen in particular who come with the blessings of their mother and their father. They are given financial support, and they come in that first semester and they party and they don't go to class and they completely squander the opportunity that they were given. And I've seen that. I've seen how many freshmen have come by my office and say, I don't know what to do. And you kind of want to say, I know what you should have done. You should have gone to class. That would be the easy thing to do. But how many of them are trying to, like him, have a game plan of how am I going to explain to my parents that I have squandered this opportunity? I have come here. I came here with a premise of I'm getting an education, and I just like here. He went and essentially partied his inheritance away. The students who come to UAB and to Jacksonville State, they have that same conflict of at Christmas. How do I tell my parents I can't go back to school because I failed out? I have a 0.0 GPA. I failed all my classes. I can't go back. And so they're coming to some of the same realization that the individual in the story is going, I've got to come up with a game plan. How do I break this news to my family? And so, verse 20, he's talking, hey, I've got this game plan. So he got up and he went to his father. And it says, but while he was a long way off, his father saw him, and he was filled with compassion for him. He ran to his son, threw his arms around him, and kissed him. Verse 21, the son said to him, Father, I have sinned against heaven and against you. I am no longer worthy of being called your son. And the story here takes an unexpected turn. And I think this paints a picture of what unconditional love looks like, for us. He says, "But the father said to his servants, 'Quick, bring the best robe, put it on him, put a ring on his finger, put sandals on his feet, bring the fattened calf, let's kill it, let's have a feast and celebrate.'" Verse 24, "For this son of mine was dead, and he is alive again. He was lost, and he is found. So let's begin to celebrate." So we kind of take a big look at these three stories. So you have the story of the lost sheep, the lost coin, and then the prodigal or the lost son. And so I think it brings a couple things to light. One, something that we may not talk about that much, but the son had something that Christ gives us, and that's free will. You have free will to make the decisions in your life. You have the free will to go to college and squander that opportunity. The free will that we are given, it can, my dad told me when I turned 18, he said, hey, Michael, you're an adult now. You do something good, you get all the credit. You do something bad, you get all the credit. And it's like, okay, that's understandable. I now have free will. I'm not a child anymore. I can go out and make decisions of my own. If I do something great, I get all the credit. If I do something bad, I get all the credit. And so that's the same in our lives today, is that Christ has given us free will, and it is your decision to act accordingly. The second thing that I think it shows is that God shows his value of you. What is laid out in these three stories, the first story, there's a lost sheep, and the shepherd, the sheep are his livelihood. Without the sheep, the shepherd is nothing. He shows, that the value that you have is similar to the shepherd losing his sheep. The sheep are his livelihood. I had an old football coach that would tell me, whenever we would do something that wasn't wise or that he couldn't understand why we were doing something, he would say, "You know what that's like? That's like a truck driver going to work without his keys." It's like, oh, that makes sense. So of course that would show you why the shepherd he's got 99 sheep, but he is so worried about the one that is missing. Several years ago, when we were still living in Jacksonville, there was news began to kind of break on Facebook from the local police department that there was an elderly gentleman who had gone missing. He was living with his daughter in one of the subdivisions in Jacksonville, and there was an elderly gentleman who had gone missing. And I'm about 90% sure that the gentleman had dementia. And so the police department got there and did just kind of an initial search of the house. Let's make sure he's not in the house. And then, as the night progressed, we had heard that, there's Aaliyah, the state police are putting a helicopter in the air to kind of search the area. And it's kind of intensifying more and more. They're bringing in some of the local volunteer fire departments to kind of search the wooded areas around the house. I had several friends of mine that were working for the police department. I said, "Hey, do you need more help? When?" And they're like, "We're not sure yet, but we will put the word out, and there will be a staging area for volunteers to go to look, to begin the search." And then, kind of out of nowhere, after the helicopter is up in the air, and they search for a while, a post appears maybe 30 minutes later. Hey, the individual has been found, and we are no longer searching for this individual. Okay, well, that was pretty fast, amazing. Thankful that the gentleman was found. As it turns out, they've got helicopters out. They've got probably 50 or 60 people, searching a kind of a cordoned off area, and they're working a grid to try to find this individual. And the man's daughter goes back into the living room, and he is just sitting there on the couch. And she's like, what? Like, and he doesn't know exactly what happened. But, I mean, by this time, we're talking there's 150 people out looking for him. And he's been sitting on this couch the entire time. And at some point, they had searched the house, but he had come back in and just sat down on the couch like nothing, had really happened. You could hear a helicopter up above searching kind of the wooded area. And somebody from the community made him a shirt that said "Hide and Seek Champion 2022," because I mean he really did. He was able to get back to home base just fine, and thankfully he was found without any issues. But I think these stories, these three parables, they really highlight one important thing, and that is that when something is lost, its value is intensified. When you I can't tell you how many times that we've lost our keys, and then it's an interesting thing to say. It was like, oh, it was where'd you find your keys? It was the last place I looked. Well, I hope so. I hope you didn't keep looking after you found them. But it is the moments where things are lost that their value is intensified. And that's what these three parables are really laying out to you, is those who are lost, their value is not negated. It is actually that much more important. And so, the other things that these stories, obviously portray is that Christ is going to search for you. He's going to run you down. He is going to pursue you. And when that decision finally comes, just like the parable of the lost son, he is going to welcome you home. And we're going to have a celebration. But as you go forward, you kind of look at the elder brother later on in that story, in the story of the lost son, and we talk about how when something is lost, its value is intensified. But the older brother is like, whoa, let's pump the brakes here, okay? While he was out gallivanting around, I was still here working. I was still here, helping on the farm. At no point have you thrown a party for me. How come he gets all this, and he's the one that went out and betrayed and really threw your name in the dirt? He was hanging around people. He blew through his inheritance. Why are we celebrating him? It's jealousy. I mean, without a shadow of a doubt, that is jealousy. And kind of like what we spoke about this morning, is it's tough sometimes for us to understand grace and who it was given to and why it's given to them. And sometimes we're the older brother going, wait a second, how come that person got the promotion? Or how come that person, I'm doing everything, I'm living a life that I think is glorifying for you, and I am seeing none of the benefits. This speaks to that. We need to be celebrating that even though we may not be fans of them, the lost people have been found. And so I want to leave you with a verse from another section that kind of speaks to when you're in those moments of jealousy, when you're in those moments of kind of disbelief of what I believe somebody deserves is not what they're getting. And so we're going to look at Colossians 3. And so Colossians 3 verses 1 through 2, it says, if you have been raised with Christ, so we are all saying that we have been raised with Christ, then it says, seek the things that are above, where Christ is seated at the right hand of God. Set your minds on things that are above, not of things on the earth. So it's really easy for us to get caught up in our feelings when Christ is saying, why are you worried about that? You're worried about the minute little things when there's so much more that you could be focused on. In some other kind of translations, that same verse is kind of restructured, and it says, so if you're serious about living this newly resurrected life with Christ, then act like it. We're saying that we're Christians, but our deeds and our portrayals are saying something else. Pursue the things over which Christ presides. Don't shuffle along with your eyes on the ground, absorbed with the things right in front of you. Look up, be alert to what is going on around. And it involves Christ, and that is where the action is. See things from his perspective. So when you're in those moments of rut, in those moments of jealousy, it's saying, don't go along shuffling your feet on the ground. Pay attention. You're missing the action in front of you. It's easy to shuffle along with your hands in your pocket going, there hasn't been a celebration for me. I thought I was doing everything right. There's been no celebration for what I've done. It's not easy. I'm not saying, like I said this morning, it's some of the things that Christ compels us to do aren't exciting, aren't necessarily what we believe that are going to be beneficial to us. But even in that moment, don't shuffle your feet. Pick your head up. You've been set apart. Act like it. It's tough. And that's always the tough thing when I'm speaking, in these situations is, please hear my heart when I say, I'm with you. I understand that. The gentleman from last night with the Secret Service stuff, he was, by God's grace, he survived. He probably should have been killed. That's tough to understand. But is that our retribution to hold on to? No. It's tough. And if you find a pastor that tells you that they've got everything together, they're lying. They're just as human as you are. Believe me, they are. They just may be a little bit more eloquent of a speaker. They're just as human as you are. They're going to struggle with the same things that are being discussed here. But let me encourage you that if you're serious about living this newly resurrected life with Christ, then act like it. Pursue things that are over which Christ presides. Don't shuffle along with your eyes on the ground. Absorb with things right in front of you, but look up, be alert for what's going on around you. It's easy to shuffle along. Some of us may have been shuffling along for a long time. I mean, I think after the death of my father, it was easy to shuffle along. Because you're like, I hadn't done anything to deserve this, right? It's easy to shuffle along. But that's not what Christ has called us to do. He's called us to be set apart, to live differently, not to shuffle along like the rest of the world. Okay, I'm going to close this in prayer. I thank you again for being here tonight. It has been an immense joy to be with you, not only this morning, but this evening. And then, do I turn it over to you, Calvin? No, we just dismissed. Okay, me and Calvin were talking about interstates before this, when we should have really been talking about what to do once I came to the end of this. But thank you guys again. I would encourage you that in those moments where you are feeling down, make sure that you pick your head up. Don't miss the action. Don't miss the action. It's Christ did not call us to be on the sideline. He wants us in the football game, right? He's prepared you for something different. So don't shuffle along. Okay, I'm going to close this in prayer, and I hope you have a good rest of your evening, and that you have a great week as you go out into the endeavors that you're going to. Dear Lord, thank you for today. Thank you for this evening. I just thank you for the group of individuals that's here I also pray for anybody who may not be here, those who may be ill or sick or dealing with situations. Dear Lord, I just pray that you give grace and providence over any of those situations. Dear Lord, I just thank you for opening our eyes and showing us that those who are lost, their value is not less, it is actually more significant to you. Dear Lord, I thank you for the many blessings that you give us that we often overlook. In your name we pray. Amen.